In this episode, we're going to explore a part of security that often feels invisible until something goes wrong: hardware security, and how it helps you trust a device from the moment it powers on. When people talk about cybersecurity, they often focus on software like applications and operating systems. But software sits on top of hardware, and the earliest steps of startup happen before most software protections are even awake. If an attacker can tamper with what loads first, they can potentially hide from many normal defenses because the system's foundation is already compromised. Hardware security tools aim to create stronger anchors for trust, so you can protect secrets like encryption keys, verify that a system booted in a known good way, and isolate sensitive work so it is harder to steal or alter. The terms in this episode can sound intimidating at first, but they connect to a small number of simple ideas: store secrets more safely, prove a system is in a trustworthy state, and keep sensitive computation separated from the rest. We'll walk through Trusted Platform Module, TPM, Hardware Security Module, HSM, Virtual TPM written as vTPM, Secure Boot, Measured Boot, and Enclaves, and you'll see how each one contributes to a more reliable security story. Before we continue, a quick note: this audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.Author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A useful starting point is to ask what we mean by hardware trust, because it is not about trusting every physical component blindly. It is about having a small, well-protected base that can perform certain security functions reliably even if other parts of the system are attacked. Think of it like having a safe embedded inside a building. Even if someone gets into the building, the safe provides an extra layer of protection for valuables. In computing, those valuables often include cryptographic keys and measurements that represent the system's state. Hardware trust also supports identity for devices, not just users, which matters because organizations often need to know whether a device is genuine and healthy before giving it access to important resources. Another key idea is that hardware security can make certain attacks more difficult, but it does not eliminate the need for good software security. It's more accurate to view hardware security as strengthening the starting point and the storage of secrets, which makes other defenses more dependable. Once you see that, the terms become easier to place in your mind. Trusted Platform Module, or TPM, is one of the most common hardware security components you'll hear about on modern computers. A TPM is a dedicated component designed to securely store certain secrets and to perform specific cryptographic operations in a way that is harder to tamper with than normal software storage. One of its important roles is protecting keys used for things like disk encryption, which helps ensure that even if someone steals the hard drive, they can't just read the data without the right authorization. Another role is supporting device identity and integrity, which means it can help prove something about the system's state. The important beginner idea is that a TPM can act like a protected vault and a trusted recorder, keeping secrets and measurements in a more defensible place than general memory or files. That doesn't mean the TPM is magically unbreakable, but it does raise the cost and complexity of attacks that try to steal keys or fake system integrity. When used properly, it reduces the chances that security depends entirely on software that can be modified by malware. Hardware Security Module, or HSM, sounds similar to TPM, but it is often used in different contexts and can be much more specialized. An HSM is typically a dedicated hardware device designed to generate, store, and use cryptographic keys in a highly controlled and auditable way. You can think of an HSM as an industrial-strength key vault, often used for protecting the most valuable keys in an organization, such as keys used to sign certificates, protect payment systems, or secure critical encryption services. Where a TPM is usually tied to an individual endpoint or server to protect that device's secrets, an HSM is often used as a shared secure service for high-value key operations. An important concept here is that the keys can be used inside the HSM without being exposed outside it in a usable form, which reduces the risk of key theft. Beginners should also understand that HSM usage is about controlling who can request cryptographic operations and under what conditions, which supports accountability. If you hear that an organization uses an HSM, it's often because they want strong assurance that key material is protected even if other systems are compromised. Now let's connect this to the idea of a vTPM, which is written with a lowercase v because it is not an all-caps acronym in the title and is generally used as a term rather than an initialism. A vTPM is a virtualized version of TPM functionality used in virtual machines or cloud environments where the underlying hardware is shared. The purpose is to provide similar security benefits, such as protected key storage and attestation-like capabilities, for systems that are not tied to one physical device in the traditional way. This matters because many modern workloads run in virtual environments where you still want to protect secrets and verify boot integrity, but you can't always rely on a physical chip dedicated to one system. The challenge is that a vTPM depends on the security of the virtualization layer and the underlying platform that hosts it. Beginners should see this as a trade-off. You gain scalable, cloud-friendly security features, but your trust boundary now includes the platform and its controls. In safe designs, the platform provides strong isolation and hardware-backed roots of trust that support the vTPM, so the virtual instance still benefits from hardware-level protections. Secure boot is a major concept in hardware security because it addresses the earliest stage of the system's life, startup. Secure boot is a process where the system verifies that the software it is about to load is trusted, typically by checking digital signatures against known trusted keys. If the next component in the boot chain is not properly signed or has been tampered with, secure boot can stop the boot process or refuse to load the untrusted component. This helps defend against bootkits and other malware that tries to insert itself before the operating system loads, because those threats rely on being the first thing to run. A beginner-friendly way to picture secure boot is like a bouncer who checks IDs at every door along a hallway. Each step checks the next step before letting it in. If one door fails the check, the process stops and the suspicious person doesn't get deeper into the building. Secure boot is not about scanning for every type of malware, but about ensuring the boot chain starts from a known good trust anchor. Measured boot is closely related, but it has a different focus, and understanding that difference helps a lot. Instead of preventing boot when something unexpected happens, measured boot records measurements of what loaded during boot so that the system can later prove what happened. In other words, measured boot creates evidence about the boot process, even if the system still boots. This can support attestation, which is the ability to show another system that you booted in an expected state. Think of measured boot like a security camera that records who entered each door, while secure boot is the guard who blocks entry when something is wrong. Both are valuable, and they can even be used together. Secure boot tries to prevent bad components from loading, and measured boot provides a trustworthy record of what did load. For beginners, the key idea is that prevention and evidence are different jobs. Sometimes you need prevention, and sometimes you need proof and visibility, especially in environments where devices must prove their integrity before being trusted with sensitive access. Attestation is worth discussing as the bridge between these boot concepts and real-world security decisions. Attestation is the process of proving something about a device's state to another system, often before access is granted. If a device can present evidence that it booted with known good components and has certain security features enabled, an organization can make smarter decisions about whether to allow it to connect to important resources. This is where a TPM often plays a role, because it can store the measurements securely and help provide evidence that is harder to forge. Beginners should see attestation as part of a larger security story. Instead of trusting a device because it is on the internal network, you trust it because it can prove it is healthy. That aligns with modern security approaches that assume networks are not automatically trustworthy. The practical value is that it reduces the risk of compromised devices quietly joining an environment and acting as trusted insiders. It also helps enforce consistent standards, because devices that cannot meet integrity requirements can be limited or remediated. Enclaves are another hardware security concept, and they focus on isolating sensitive computation from the rest of the system, even if the operating system is compromised. An enclave is a protected area where code and data can be kept more isolated, so that other processes, and sometimes even privileged software, cannot easily access it. The idea is not that enclaves make everything safe, but that they can protect especially sensitive operations, like handling encryption keys or performing certain checks, in a way that reduces exposure. A beginner-friendly analogy is a private room inside a building that even most employees can't enter, where a sensitive task is performed behind locked doors. Enclaves can be useful for protecting secrets in memory and for reducing certain insider or malware risks that rely on reading sensitive data from the normal system environment. They are not a replacement for good application security, because the surrounding application still needs to be designed well, but they can reduce the impact of a compromise by shrinking what an attacker can see. When you hear about enclaves, think isolation for high-value computation rather than general system hardening. It's also important to understand how these hardware security concepts interact with the practical challenge of key management, because keys are often the main asset being protected. Disk encryption keys, signing keys, and service keys are extremely valuable because they can unlock data or allow impersonation. Storing those keys in a TPM or using an HSM for key operations can reduce the risk of key theft, but it also introduces lifecycle management concerns, like what happens when hardware is replaced or when keys must rotate. A secure design plans for recovery and continuity, because losing a protected key can mean losing access to data, while leaking a key can mean losing confidentiality or integrity. Beginners sometimes focus only on the lock-it-down aspect and forget that systems must still work and be maintainable. Hardware-backed protection aims to reduce theft and misuse, but it must be paired with careful operational practices to avoid turning security into fragility. The best way to see this is that hardware security makes keys safer, but it also makes you more dependent on doing key lifecycle correctly. Another helpful way to unify everything is to think about the trust chain from power on to application use. Secure boot and measured boot help establish whether the system started in a trustworthy way. The TPM or vTPM can protect secrets and store evidence about the system state. An HSM can protect the organization's most critical keys and signing operations at a higher tier. Enclaves can protect sensitive computation while the system runs, reducing exposure to certain attacks that happen after boot. These pieces reinforce each other across time. Boot integrity helps ensure the foundation is clean, protected key storage helps ensure secrets aren't easily stolen, and runtime isolation helps ensure sensitive operations remain safer during normal use. For beginners, it can be reassuring to see that these are not random buzzwords. They are answers to different moments in a system's life. The key is matching the protection to the risk and the asset. If the asset is high-value keys, you focus on hardware-backed key protection. If the risk is boot-level tampering, you focus on boot integrity. If the risk is runtime data exposure, you focus on isolation. To conclude, implementing hardware security is about strengthening the roots of trust and protecting the most sensitive secrets and processes in ways that software alone struggles to guarantee. TPM and vTPM help protect device-level secrets and support integrity evidence. HSM protects top-tier organizational keys and cryptographic operations. Secure boot helps prevent untrusted boot components from loading. Measured boot helps record what actually loaded for later proof, and enclaves help isolate sensitive computation during runtime. These tools matter because attackers increasingly aim below the surface, looking for ways to persist, steal keys, or hide in the earliest stages of startup. When you design with hardware security in mind, you reduce those opportunities and make the system's security story more reliable. The most important beginner takeaway is that trust is not just a feeling. It is something systems can prove through evidence, protected storage, and isolation. When those capabilities are used thoughtfully, they make every other layer of security stronger because the foundation is harder to fake and harder to subvert.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.